I'm Jeanette Lane for Papercraft Essentials, and the latest issue of the magazine is issue 164, and it comes with a gorgeous 18-piece stamp set called Christmas Memories. So I made a pop-up box card, and that's what I'm going to be sharing in this tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this box pop-up card, and what I love is that it folds, it collapses, and it folds down, and you can put this in an envelope and send it to a friend. To start off our pop-up box card, I'm going to make my base from white cardstock, and I need to trim my cardstock to 8.5 inches by 12. So the best paper to use for this would be a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper. You can't use, unfortunately, you can't use A4 size paper because it would be too small, because this does need to be cut down to 8.5 inches by 12 inches. So now that my paper is trimmed to 8.5 inches by 12 inches, I'm going to turn this so that it's horizontal on my scoreboard, and I'm using the hunky-dory adorable scoreboard, and I'm going to score this on the long side. So I'm going to score this in 4 places, and I'll make sure to have these measurements for you in the video description. So the first score line is going to be at 2 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to take my bone folder and go slide it along that track, scoring track, and then I'm going to score at 5.5 inches, and then 8 1/4 inches, and 11 inches. So here is my paper all scored, and I'm going to trim 2 inches off of this. So I'm just going to move this down, and I just need a 2-inch strip. So it's going to be 2 inches by 12 inches. And we're going to use this strip later, so don't discard it, just set it aside. Okay, so here is my scored card, and I'm going to turn this vertically, and I'm going to score this at 2 3/4 inches all the way down. So here is the 2 3/4 inch score line that I just scored. And now I'm going to take some scissors and cut from this score line to the end along the scores, these 4 vertical scores that are here. So I'm just taking my scissors and cutting along the score line and stopping at that 2 3/4 inch score line. So these are going to be the flaps of my box. Okay, so here is, so I flipped this over, and this is what it looks like now. So these are going to be the flaps of the box, and this is probably the trickiest part of this tutorial. So here we have this 1-inch wide score line, and originally this was the score line, the 11-inch score line. So what we want to do now is cut just a vertical line. So we want to cut off this excess tab, but we don't just want to go horizontally like that. We want to do it at an angle. So I'm going to cut from this end up to that point where those 2 score lines meet. So then your box will look something like this. So we have this score line here, and now I'm just going to score these so that they're clearly delineated and you can see what's going on. So just scoring all these lines, and these are the flaps of the box. And that's the base of our pop-up card. So we're going to set this aside because I want to cut all the mats that are going to go on the box, on the back side of the box, on the very back of the box, and also the underside. So we're going to cut those next. So let me just set all this aside and grab my teal and my purple cardstock and my paper trimmer, because we're going to do a lot of trimming. Now, depending on the pattern paper that you used or the cardstock that you use will depend how many of the different colors that you need. But I'm going to show you what I did, and then you can just apply those same measurements and the technique to the particular pattern paper that you'll be using. Now, the measurements are really easy to remember. So you're going to need 1 inside back panel sized to 2.5 inches by 6 1/4 inches. So let's do that first. So that's this purple panel here in the background that you can't really see, but there it is. So you're going to need 1 of those, and that's 2.5 inches by 6.25 inches, and then one for the back side as well. So I'm going to cut the purple and the teal at the same time. So this is 2.5 inches by 6.25 inches. So that's going to be our front and our back panels. So next I want to do 3 of these lower panels. So we don't need the back side because we already have that. So we have 1, 2, 3, and these are sized to 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So this strip is already sized at 2.5 inches, so now I just need to trim it down to 3.5 inches, and I'm going to need 3 of these. Now I'm going to cut these upper panels, so I don't need the back side there, so I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3 in teal, and those are sized to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So those are just 2.5 inch squares, so those are super easy to trim down. So there's our 3 squares for our upper panel. And now I want to cut the 3 purple squares for our little flaps for our inside panels. And so that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and those are sized to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So also 2.5 inch squares, super easy. Here are the mats that we're going to be using for our card. So again, we have 2 that are 2.5 inches by 6.25 inches. And then we have the 3 lower panels here, and that is for the outside only. And we have these measured to 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And then we have these 6 upper panels, so 3 for the outside there, and those are 2.5 inch squares, so that's these. And then we have the 3 on the inside, and these are also sized to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, so 2.5 inch squares, and there we have those. Now before I glue down my mats to my box pop-up card base, what I'm going to do is stamp these with one of the stamps, this sparkly twinkle stars here. So I'm going to use that with the iZink pigment metal ink in silver, and I really love this ink. It's got, you've probably seen me use it in other videos, but this is really easy. It's going to look like I have this customized pattern paper, but all I'm doing is just repeatedly stamping the stars onto all of these panels. Now that my mats are dry, it's time to glue them to the panels. So here I have my box card base, and what I'm going to do is place this little tab here to the left side, and this is going to be the inside of the box. So I'm going to take the panel, let me check which one was the inside. I used purple there, you can see that purple panel, so I'm going to grab the purple panel and glue that all the way across on this first rectangle, this first panel of my box card. Now the other panels on the inside of my box are purple, so I'm going to grab the purple ones, the purple 2.5 inch squares. I'm going to place them there, and then that's going to be it for the inside of the box. We're going to flip this over and work on the outside of the box, but first let me glue all these down. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this over, and this is going to be the outside of the box. So here is that little tab right there on the right side now. So we're going to match that long panel on the opposite side, on the back side of that. So that's going to be the large one there. So this again is 2.5 inches by 6.25 inches. And then we have all of our other tier panels. So I'm just going to match these up. So these are 2.5 inch squares, and then we have the 2.5 inches by 3.5 inch mats here. So this is going to be the outside of the box, and now I'm just going to glue all these down as well. So now that all of our mats are on there, it's time to glue this card closed. So we're going to put some adhesive right there. So it'll be some right here just to hide, tuck that little notch behind this panel here. Okay, so there it is, all assembled, glued down, ready to go. And next we want to work on these 2 little inside strips here. They're white pieces of cardstock. and these are what hold our stamped images in place. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I had you save that 2-inch strip from that cardstock. So here it is, there's that strip. It's still got the score lines on it. So what we want to do is first trim this. So here is that 11-inch score line. So that's just 1-inch wide score line, sorry. And so what we're gonna do is cut this at 4 3/4 inches. So we're just gonna shimmy this down, slide this paper, not shimmy, sorry. And we're gonna cut that at 4 3/4 inches. So then we have this little strip here, and then we want to cut this in half. So here are the 2 strips that we get, and we want to glue these down on the inside of the box. So just like that. So we're just gonna add the adhesive. So what we're gonna do is just add the adhesive on these 2 squares. So adding a little bit there and on this side. And then we're just going to slide them down. Hold them in place until they dry, and it doesn't take very long for the acrylic glue to dry, which is amazing. So we're going to make sure those are in there. We don't want them too far down. So there's one in there. So then we're gonna take the other one and just add a little bit of glue here and here. And then we're just gonna slide this down. So I've glued in those little strips there, and you want to make sure that this is still collapsible because you want to be able to send this flat in an envelope in case you're sending that to a friend. So we're good on that front, and now it's time to move on to stamping. So our box is complete, and we're setting this aside because I need to stamp and color these images. Now I'm not going to do all of these because that would be a really long video because these are colored with alcohol markers. So I'm just going to show you how I colored and stamped and colored the Christmas tree, and then we'll assemble the rest of our card. Now for my alcohol markers, I'm using my little Tipsies, and here is my swatch chart. And then I have some ultra smooth white cardstock. I want to say this is 250 GSM, perfect for stamping and coloring with alcohol markers. And then I'm going to grab my stamp set, which is down here, and I want to stamp this gorgeous, fluffy, full, very full Christmas tree. And I'm going to mount that onto my stamp block. And for my ink, I'm using the Memento in Tuxedo Black. There is our image, and now I'm going to color it. So let me make sure I'm in frame there. So I'm going to be using 3 shades of green on this Christmas tree. So that's 173, 42, and 47. And that 42 is really dark. So I'm just going to start off with 173. That's the lightest color again. And I'm going to just color all the leaves. I really love this tree. It's so festive. And I love that it's full. I feel like it's really hard to find a Christmas tree stamp with a really full and chubby Christmas tree. I'm going to jump to my darkest color, which is 42, and then I'm going to do just the edges, all these little lines here of the tree. So I'm coloring along the line art of the stamp, so anywhere I see these lines, and also the outlines of the branches, and just going over them with my marker. So now it's time to move on to my medium green shade, so that's number 47. And what I'm going to do is color where the light shade meets the dark shade. And I'm going to use like a little flicking motion to bring that, extend that dark color towards the lighter color. So I'm just doing just tiny little flicks. So I'm just doing tiny little flicks right along the colors where those 2 colors meet, where the light meets the dark. And this is at the medium tone. Now I'm going to go with my lightest color, which is 173, and I'm going to blend all of these colors together. So what happens is that with the lighter colors of your alcohol markers, there's more alcohol in them, so it dilutes the other colors, which is why the lightest color is perfect for blending. So as you just saw, I went over all the dark greens, so the darkest shade of green and the medium shade of green with the lightest shade of green, and it really just blended all the colors together. And now it's time to move on to my bows and my baubles. Let's start off with the star actually. So I want 2 shades of yellow for that. So I've got this one, which is a lemon yellow, so that's number 35, and then I want maybe an orange almost kind of yellow, so I'm going to go with number 33. So I'm taking this 35, I hope I said the right number, sorry, this is 35, and I'm just going to color all that star, just kind of color it all over, and then I'm going to take 33, which has kind of a yellow, sorry, not yellow, orange tone to it, and I'm going to do a little bit here and there on those edges. If I go outside the lines, it's not a big deal because I'm gonna fussy cut this in just a bit. I feel like my star isn't popping enough, so I want to add just a little bit more orange to it. So I'm taking this 23, which is a really dark orange, and just adding a little flick here and there to give it some dimension. Now for the baubles, I'm going to use these 2. So this is number 9 and number 84. So I'm going to take the lighter of the 2, which is 9. And I'm just going to go over the baubles completely. So just covering those baubles in number 9. And then I'm going to take number 84 and just add some color just on the sides. And this is going to give the bauble some depth, add a little shadow to it. So just there on the side, kind of like in a moon kind of shape. And then I'm just going to go back with my lightest color. And then we're going to add some highlights to this with a white gel pen, ink gel pen. So I'm pretty happy with the baubles. And now let's move on to the bows. Now for the bows, I'm going to use these 2 shades. Now this is the lightest of the 2 shades I'm using. So I'm going to do that color all over the bows. And this is number 172. And I don't know if on camera this lid looks a little bit green, but it's it's more blue than green. So that's why it's so important to swatch all of your colors. So here I have these all swatched just so that you know, like when you reach for it, you're like, oh wait, that's not green. Even though the lid does have a little green tinge to it, it's more of a very light blue. So make sure to swatch all your colors. That's the first thing you should do when you buy your set of alcohol markers. So now I'm going to take my darker blue, and I'm so sorry that I didn't flip this over in the beginning. So now I'm going to take the darker of the blues. So this is 61, and I'm just going to outline the shape of the bow. Now I'm going to go back with 172 and just color that all over, blend those lines, those harsh lines out. I'm just coloring in circle motions. I'm by no means an alcohol marker expert colorer, but I do love coloring with alcohol markers. And you know what? I tend to stick to either 2 or 3 colors max. And I just make it easy on myself because it is stressful the more colors that you blend together. And I don't know, it just doesn't have to be. You can still get some really nice darks and lights with just 2 colors. And now for my stars, I'm going to use CG5 all over. So these are just going to be 1 color. Now I wanted to add some highlights to my baubles. So I'm going to take a white gel pen and I'm just going to draw a little short line, like a little curved line there, and then a longer one underneath. And I'm going to repeat the same process. So just a little line, curved line, and then another one. Little curved line, longer curved line, just along that edge here. And then we can add some highlights to the bow. So just the same thing, just adding some white lines here and there. We'll put some on our star too. And I'm done with my Christmas tree. So I've stamped and colored these images beforehand. So here I have this little mouse king. I don't want to call him a rat king because he's a little mouse king. And then we have this fairy ballerina, and then we have some gifts. So these have all been colored and fussy cut beforehand, and now I'm going to fussy cut my Christmas tree with some scissors. So my images are all done, and I want to stamp my sentiment. Don't want to forget about that. So it's right there, Magical Christmas. So I just want to stamp that, stamp that on this piece of white cardstock. I'm going to use VersaFine ink in Onyx Black, and then the Magical Christmas stamp is this one down here from the Christmas Memories stamp set included in issue 164? Yes, issue 164 of the magazine. So I'm just going to stamp that on this white cardstock. So I've trimmed down my stamp sentiment just a hair, and then I'm going to mat and layer that onto this scrap piece of teal cardstock that matches my card base, my pop-up box card base, and I'm just going to glue that. Sorry, I already added adhesive. You're like, wow, that's magic. So I've added some adhesive on the back, and I'm just gluing that down so that can go on the back of my box like so. And then my tree will go on that back panel there. So my sentiment is going to go on my back panel there, on the back panel of the box, and then my Christmas tree will go right beside it. And to attach those, I'm going to use some foam tape. As you're gluing down your elements, just make sure that you're checking every so often that this is still collapsible and you can sand this flat. Now to attach the stamped images to the white strips in here, you're going to need some acetate. I feel like acetate works best because it's clear, and you can use white cardstock to attach your images to your card, but I know I feel like acetate is just a little bit better because you can't really see it. So I have these strips of acetate, and I've cut them to 1 inch width, and then depending on where you want to place them on your card will depend how long they are. So if you want your ballerina to pop up, then you would have, have a really long piece of acetate so that she really flies, so she's really flying out of the box. So again, this is a 1 inch strip wide of acetate, and then depending on where you want to place your images, how high or how low will depend how long it is. So you will have to trim accordingly. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue adhesive right there at the top. And this is probably hard to see on camera because it's a clear, acetate is clear. I couldn't find it. I thought I couldn't even find it in my stash right now. It took me a very long time to find the acetate that I was going to use for this tutorial. Okay, so there she is attached to the acetate, and now I'm going to put a little bit of glue here on the bottom. The glue is still wet, so it hasn't dried yet, so here she is upright, but I'm just going to tilt her at an angle to add interest to my card, and again doing a flat a flat check to make sure that this is still collapsible and flat. Now it's time to add the acetate to my little mouse king. He needs a name. And then I'm attaching the acetate there. And I'm going to place him on the same strip as the ballerina, but maybe not as tall because he's just a little shorty. He's a little cutie. So I'm just adding him to that strip there, and I also want him to be kind of at a tilt. Now for my presents, I'm not going to use any acetate. I'm just going to use a little bit of adhesive along the bottom, just the bottom there. And then I'm going to glue that directly to the first white strip in our box card. And there is our card. If you want to embellish your card further and add it, make it more fancy, add a little glitz, then what I did was just tie a little bow, a blue satin bow there, and then I just added some gemstones throughout, but that's completely optional. I hope that you enjoyed that tutorial, and don't forget to grab your copy of Papercraft Essentials issue 164.